So my name is Tanya Callaghan. I am a session and freelance bass player, and I am delighted to be here today at the Abbey Road Institute in Paris. Yeah, so my journey to being in the music industry is actually, I guess, quite a 180 turn I took later than most. I didn't start playing bass until I was about 18. I worked very heavily in animal rights and environmental activism when I was younger. And then when I was about 17 or 18, I picked up a bass guitar and I very quickly fell in love with the bass. And I immediately started gigging in small pubs all over Ireland. I'm from a small town and we were, wedding bands and cover bands and heavy metal bands. And I kept joining every band that would have me. And gigging became my teacher very quickly. I have no formal education actually in music. Everything is ear and everything is experience from touring and gigging a lot and learning from, my peers in the industry. I'm busier as a touring and live bass player, but I also do and have done a lot of recording. So many times with the artists that I tour with, we end up doing albums or writing sessions together. So I have done a lot of recording also, and I enjoy both. But for me, live performing and touring is my bigger passion. So part of being a session player and a freelancer is that you have to adapt a certain amount to the style of the gig that has hired you. So my career has been very, very varied in genres. I've done everything from rap and R&B and pop straight to like the river dance. So it's like, theater, and then a lot of obviously rock bands. But the one thing that I actually keep pretty consistent is my bass sound, because I play Sadowski basses, which are phenomenal, and they really adapt very well. And I play Ampeg, classic Ampegs most of the time, and a very basic pedal setup, because I want to have a consistent and reliable sound. But obviously if the gig or the artist is looking for something specific, I'll work from that point. So my basses are incredible. Roger Sadowski is a phenomenal builder. It's one of the most powerful preamps in these guitars. And within the onboard preamp, there is just so much room for your own mixing, essentially. So the instruments are very adaptable for sound. So if a gig or an album requires more of a gritty sound or more high end or more lows or mids, I kind of have everything within this reliable sound that I've used for years, which is the Sadowski and the Ampegs. If the gig really requires it, if there's so I'll just use the Bruce Dickinson gig, for instance, at the moment. Bruce has a couple of really like quirky sections in some of the songs that happen on bass. So I, go out and I explore adding, like I have wah in one of them. I have the Dunlop Justin Chancellor wah, because that song really needs that. But I'm working from a baseline sound, pardon the pun, of this classic Ampeg and Sadowski mix. But of course, like if a new pedal comes out, I want to play with it and see. But I like to try to keep a very consistent sound in general across my gear. But every now and then I find a new bass toy that I want to play with. And of course, like the companies are always like, there's new heads coming out all the time. Like I've mostly used the classic SVT heads, but the SVT Pro 2s and the 8s, as they come along and get better and better and quite often more lightweight, it's great to kind of roll with the times. But I'm a little old fashioned with keeping my old school rock and roll sound, because these companies have been doing what they do for a long time. What I try to do is I really try to honor the original bass line. So when a band hires me, and Whitesnake's a great example, because Whitesnake has like all of these really, really classic, epic, legendary songs. So a gig like that, I will dive into, so the original bass player would say it's Neil Murray, and I will get bass headphones and I will listen with, super precision to what he's doing, and I will learn it note for note. And I'll go into the gig knowing everything original, as close to the sound of the original bass player. But as time goes on, as you gig, you essentially add your own flair. But my job as a hired gun, as a session bass player, is to honor the music and to honor the original lines, especially in such epic, iconic songs, because you can't have the audacity to go in and change something that is incredible already. But of course, you add your own flair with your performance. With everyone has a slightly different feel, how you're vibing off your drummer as a bass player. But with different genres, with certain gigs, there's more space to be, say it's, I've played with like rappers and R&B where there is no electric bass on the recording. So you may just be learning something that's like sidechained or keys. So you can add more of your own flair in that situation. But with classic rock, with things like Bruce and with Whitesnake and Dee Snider, I want to honor the original bass lines and work from there. With the time, sound has got better, obviously. So sometimes you're listening to, I'm learning from old recordings that have a really bad sound that you're trying to dig the bass out of. So that's the cool thing about like the more modern gear. I can play these tracks that you could barely hear bass on from the 70s and 80s and now really punch through. And that's been really cool because I've had a lot of people come up to me after like Whitesnake shows and thank me for playing original Neil Murray bass lines, like note for note, with a clearer sound, which is awesome to hear because these guys are amazing. These original bass players that I want to honor. Some songs are easier because it's kind of classic riff, classic form, A B, verse chorus, bridge out. But the concerto gig that I did last year with Bruce on vocals, and we were playing the music of John Lord and his concerto, which was a real challenge because the first part of that show is 3 movements that are all between 10 and like 15 minutes long before it turns into a rock and roll show with an 82-piece symphony orchestra, and I do everything by ear. So that takes a lot of discipline and focus because it's not, I come in on the verse and then, I do this on the chorus. There's 4 minutes where there's no bass and you want to be listening because you got like a short punch in 7 minutes into the song and then you're out and then you come in on a crazy riff or whatever. So the concerto was more challenging musically, and also about 9 or 10 years ago I toured the Riverdance, the Irish show, the Riverdance, and that was also a big challenge musically because it is a blend of world music. So it's Irish music, Latin music, street, tango, everything like mixed in. And again, form-wise, musically, it was a big challenge because you're cutting, like these sections are rolling together of all these different styles of international music. And big long pieces like scenes, they're not songs. So those 2 gigs were like musically definitely probably most challenging. I think it's a very professional thing to do, to turn down a gig that's you're not right for. So like I would never, people have called me before to do like a jazz fusion gig or a classic, French or Italian romance album. It's not my strong point. And I'm totally okay with that. And I will pass on the bass player that I think is more fitted for that genre because it's not fair to not show up 100% for the music. And if that's not where I feel my strong point in, I would absolutely just recommend a different musician for the place. The music industry is a difficult industry. Like there's no point in, pretending it's all roses. It's a very difficult business and it's very, it's hard to quote unquote make it. But one of the things that I think people don't realize about entering the music business as a profession is that so much of it is about relationships and you're constantly having to interact with people. So like people and communication skills are essential. You can't go in there with a massive ego just because you could be the best technical player, engineer in the world, but if you're an asshole or you bring a lot of drama to a camp, it's going to be short-lived because so much of being on the road especially is about, people skills and interaction and like the hang, as it called in the music industry. So like really being malleable and being like a chameleon to the situation because there's always things going wrong in a live setting, on the tour bus, like on the go. You can't be a difficult person to work with. That's important before the actual skills. And then I think just like perseverance, people give up easily sometimes. In the arts are difficult. It's a very difficult, you know, choice of a career, because you're going to have a lot of hurdles. And I had so many, and so many times thinking, why am I doing this? It's so hard. You know, terrible pay, terrible situations, like difficult people to work with. But you will know at those points if you're meant for it, because you'll keep going, and your perseverance is, you know, something that you have to really listen to your sort of inner guidance with that, because if you give up at the first few shitty gigs or problems, you're not going to make it in the music industry. It's difficult already. So if it truly is your passion, you will persevere in it. Also, it's important to not get stuck in like one genre. A lot of times I see musicians, especially, well, not just young musicians, but musicians in general, say, I'm a jazz musician, or I'm a metal musician, or I'm, you know, and they've put themselves in a box. It's important to be open to and work many styles of music, because it will broaden your ears. It will also expand your opportunities to get gigs across different genres. And if you can adapt and play many styles, it's only going to stand to you, and not be, you know, not turn down a pop gig because you think that's cheesy, or not turn down metal because you're only into jazz. I think it's very important to see music as a whole.